Senator Joe Lieberman and some others introduced legislation this past week which would give the State Department the right to strip the U.S. citizenship from anyone who is designated a foreign terrorist agent. I understand the administration does not support this and thinks that there are constitutional issues, but there's a point that Senator Lieberman made about the fact that President Obama currently has the authority, at least according to Lieberman, who's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, to order the assassination of a U.S. citizen, the cleric Alakwi. Well, this is what Senator Lieberman had to say.
If the president can authorize the killing of a United States citizen because he is fighting for a foreign terrorist organization, we can also have a law that allows the U.S. government to revoke his citizenship and that of other American citizens who have cast their lot with terrorist organizations.
Isn't there a strange double standard here? The administration gets all offended about revoking, terrorist suspects' citizenship, but feels no compunction at all about.
Well, I'm not going to assume that what has been said there about ordering anybody's assassination is necessarily true. But with regard to the bill that Senator Lieberman is potentially talking about, that's not something I've had a chance to really review. There are potential constitutional issues with it, as I've seen some critics discuss it. I've not had a chance, as I said, to review it in any great detail. But I think what people have to understand is that the system that we presently have in place takes terrorists and can put them in jail for extended periods of time. We can put people in jail for the rest of their lives. We can even execute people under the law as it presently exists. And one has to wonder whether or not we need to go further than that.
I want to turn to a couple other topics. You and the White House have been proud of the improved review process for the release or transfer of detainees from Guantanamo. And in fact, writing of those detainees who have been released and who have returned to terrorism, White House counterterrorism czar John Brennan wrote in February, quote, "I want to underscore the fact that all these cases relate to detainees released during the previous administration and under the prior detainee review process. But in fact, there are reports that a detainee released by the Obama administration in December into Afghanistan, Abdul Hafiz, has rejoined the Taliban. Did this review process fail?"
Well, I've seen that story. I've not seen the intelligence necessarily that confirms that. I don't think, one has to understand that the process that we put in place to look at the 240 prisoners who were in Guantanamo when we took office was an exhaustive one. Involved the law enforcement community, involved the intelligence community. We took into account all of the information that we had on each one of those people, did an analysis of each of them and made a determination as to who potentially was a threat. Only put people in countries where we thought structures could be put in place so that they would not be threats to our country.
What structure could possibly exist in Afghanistan?
Well, that's one of the reasons why, for instance, with regard to Yemen, the president has made the determination that we're going to suspend the repatriation of people to Yemen to make sure that we don't take anybody out of Guantanamo and put them in a country where they could pose a threat to the United States or to American military forces.
But you're not going to confirm that Abdul Hafiz has rejoined the fight against the United States?
No, I'm not in a position to confirm that. As I said, I've not seen any intelligence that corroborates that as yet.
Last fall, you announced that the trial of the century against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and other 9/11 plotters would take place in New York City, but it seems to be that that's walked back by the White House. Here's what you had to say about the president's response to your announcement of the trial last fall to PBS.
He's a person who believes that a president's supposed to have hands off with his Justice Department in those things that are in the province of the Attorney General. All he needs to be is informed.
This doesn't seem to be the case any longer. Are you disappointed that the White House seems to be politicizing the decisions you make about the trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed?
No, I don't think the decision's being politicized at all. This is a national security matter, and I think it's appropriate for the president to be involved in that decision. We are working to see exactly where the trial will be held. Nothing is really off the table at this point. We're trying to come up with a place where these people can be brought to justice as quickly as we can, taking into consideration a variety of things that we have to consider. And I think in that regard, the involvement of the president, given the fact that it is a national security matter as opposed to something else the Justice Department might be doing, his involvement, I think, is appropriate.
You've said we're a nation of cowards because we don't talk freely and openly about race. So in that spirit, let me give it a shot. Do you think the Arizona immigration law is racist?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. I mean, I think we have to understand that the immigration problem that we have, the illegal immigration problem that we have, is a national one, and a state-by-state solution to it is not the way in which we ought to go.
But your issue with it is not that it's state-by-state. Your issue with it is that there are concerns that there might be racial profiling that takes place, right?
That is certainly one of the concerns that I have, that you will end up in a situation where people are racially profiled, and then that could lead to a wedge drawn between certain communities and law enforcement, which leads to the problem of people in those communities not willing to interact with people in law enforcement, not willing to share information, not willing to be witnesses where law enforcement needs them. I think you have to think about the collateral consequences of such a law, understanding the frustration that people feel in Arizona. It's one of the reasons why I think we have to have a national solution to this immigration problem.
Do you think it's racist?
I don't think it's racial. I don't think it's racist in its motivation, but I think the concern I have is how it will be perceived and how it perhaps could be enacted, how it could be carried out. I think you potentially get on a slippery slope where people will be picked on because of how they look as opposed to what they have done, and that is, I think, something that we have to try to avoid at all costs.
The oil company BP has a spotty record when it comes to cutting corners and, in some cases, worker safety. Are you looking into the oil spill in the Gulf, possible criminal charges, and ways to make sure that these companies, not just BP, but Halliburton and the others, are held accountable?
Well, our primary concern at this point is to try to make sure that we keep that oil offshore, that we disperse it, that we scoop it up, that we burn it, that we do all those kinds of things so that it can't get to shore and do damage to our wetlands, damage businesses that are on the coast. I've sent down representatives from the Justice Department to examine what our options are with regard to the activities that occurred there and whether or not there has been misfeasance, malfeasance on the part of BP or Oceana. So we're looking at that situation, but as I said, our primary focus at this point through our Department of Homeland Security, the Interior Department, is really to try to deal with the spill.
All right, that's all the time we have. Attorney General Eric Holder, thank you so much for coming by.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.